Ladies and gentlemen, it's Doc Leesner and the Professor John Gotti. New theme music. No? All right. The Professor John Gotti, ladies and gentlemen, the King of Anji, the Troll Master, the Data Analyzing Ninja, the Conqueror, the guy who once said, I don't want to not ride in first class.
I never said that, actually.
That's fine.
Never said that, actually.
That's okay.
That is.
But I'm glad we.
A statement of fiction, actually.
A statement of fiction. And that right there is up for debate on today's episode. But before we jump into that, Johnny, how are you doing?
Did you just
Tuesday, on this Tuesday episode of Debate Amongst Friends? It's cloudy outside. That means we're about to jump into the dark side of the ring.
It may be cloudy, but we always stay tranquilo. Doc H3ll, the podcasting beast, freshly squeezed, the master of the B-Dorm himself. And he just wants to run it back.
Yeah, we'll get to that running it back tomorrow with more football and sporting news. Today it's all about Vice.
Today it's all about these Silencio of the Woos.
Man, listen, it's a silencio of a lot of things. So
the resurrection of days gone by is essentially the motif of this episode, folks.
Oh my God, it's them. Crank it, Jerry.
I don't think they want to crank that. Actually, they don't.
Let's talk about this really. So I just watched it this morning. I wanted it to be fresh. You were talking about fresh squeeze. This is pretty fresh squeezed right here. So first and foremost,
did you know about the story beforehand?
That's what I was about to say. Doc never heard of this plane.
This is going to be a great episode, folks. Buckle in.
Okay. This is a brand new experience. Doc never heard of this plane ride from hell.
Yes.
Which everything during that time frame was hell-ish. It felt like. I mean, I feel like at that time, and maybe it got buried because at that time it was all about, WWE get the F out, right? That's how it ended. That's kind of
it was
where
literally
we were
the very next day.
Right. So that's the only thing I know. That's the only thing I remember. Oh, WWE. Oh,
well,
okay. That's
of course, because there were no, legal stories that came out about it, and a lot of things just kind of got swept under the rug.
Not under. I mean, it.
And I don't mean in the front porch, folks. I'm talking about on that aeroplane.
Right. It's literally in the little seat back folder.
Yes.
But let's jump into this thing, man. So it starts out peaches and cream,
give the people your thoughts on the story. Before we get into the episode, give the people your thoughts on the story.
So,
because I knew, but it's all about Doc's reaction right now, folks.
So it's kind of what I expected. I'm pretty disappointed in a few things. Not everything. I'm not disappointed in everything because I know ribs. We talk about ribs all the time, but I'm pretty disappointed in a lot of things. I'm actually disappointed because, number one, what the absolute bleep, right? From Flair to Brock and Mr. Perfect almost going through the emergency exit to people cutting off people's ponytails. Like it was almost like it just kept going further and further and further. So it's like if you've never heard about it, you're like, okay, alcohol, sure, drugs, okay. But then we just kind of kept going more and more and more, and the layers kind of just kept getting added and piled on. I think by the end of this, we're talking about maybe a 7 to 10 layer cake.
And that's probably still only the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, yeah, like there's a whole platform underneath. So this is a big cake. But I really want to jump into it from the beginning here because
Sure.
it seemed like things were going fine. You know, hey, we're taking a trip to the UK, right? We're going to do this little 4-day tour. The flight going overseas was fine. There
Hmm.
were no issues. Now, before we get started, I will say that um, recently, after this has been released, people did say that Vince McMahon wasn't on the plane. Vince and Linda weren't on the plane. Those are reports coming out right now that I've seen days later, but that's where it kind of gets to be speculation because I was kind of confused. I was like, why the heck would Vince fly with them? Even though it's a company plane, I still would expect Vince to fly his own plane. I ain't gonna lie. I
I
still would
don't
expect Vince to have his
think
own plane.
I don't think at that time. I think it was all about trying to boost morale. And I think
Sure,
by the time the entire trip was over, they were just restless.
sure.
And then they
Um,
became stupid. And then it
oh,
became
big
even
time.
more stupid.
Well, let's not get there because right now it's still peaches and cream. I mean, right now we're in the beginning. It's like there's nothing going on. Yeah, they're drinking. You know, the flight takes off on time. They get there. They
No,
have
no,
three
no.
of
The flight did not take off on time.
the first one.
I'm talking about you talking about them heading back or heading to?
No, that's what I'm saying. In the beginning, it was all peaches and cream when they
Oh
were
yeah.
going to. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like in the beginning, you wouldn't know there was an issue going there. It was like everything is perfect. You didn't hear about any ribs. It was like everybody was drinking. They're having a good time. They're ready to get
Again,
over here.
you haven't heard about it, but I'm pretty sure there have been.
It couldn't have been as bad as the latter half. Is what I'm
Well,
saying.
again, this is why we're looking at it. Well, these things probably still happen, but it paled in comparison of the culmination that occurred
Well,
on the plane.
based on the young lady Heidi, she was there. Right? She said everything was cool in the first ride. I mean, in the ride going, everything was cool. And then when they got to the hotel, they was drinking. She was happy to be away from her kid. Right? We're talking about that. That's what she's saying. She's like, hey, everything was good. They're having a good time. I wanted to make sure I didn't get too comfortable, give the wrong ideas, blah, blah, blah. Right? We're talking about all these things. Right? They go wrestle for 4 days, 4-day tour. So here's where it gets crazy. And this is where I'm blaming part of this on the airlines. And if Vince McMahon was on this plane, it would be Vince and the WWE or WWF at that time until a day later. So they're on this plane. They say, hey, there's a weather delay, right?
Yeah, weather delay back in
Oh,
Connecticut.
we'll be delayed for 20 minutes. Now, for us, it's like, hey, 20 minutes, okay, whatever. But once it goes past that hour mark, oh no, we should start looking at other alternatives. I know they have to be back for they had to be back for
Raw.
Raw, but I'm not gonna lie, man. I mean, they should have had them off the plane until they were ready to freaking take off. Like they should have gotten them after 2 hours. Them boys should have been off that plane in a heartbeat. 7 hours, bro, on an airplane where they went through 3 alcoholic carts.
Yep.
No, there's no possible way I would have been on, I would have left them on a plane for more than 2 hours. Like, you got to get them out of there. Even if you just put them outside, like, I don't know, put them somewhere, but there's no way 7 hours. And that's why I was hoping that that part was exaggerated because there's just no way that I would be. Just think me as a regular consumer. No, get me out of here.
I mean,
I
I
got to
can
get off
tell
this
you
plane
from my own personal experience, like I was like, oh, I'm getting off this plane. I'm going to
right
find a new
now.
flight and
Yes,
I'm figure
get me
out what
out
I
of
need to
here.
do from there because
But
I
not
refuse
7 hours
to sit.
though.
No, especially for,
Yeah.
I mean, and they had to go across a huge body of
Yes.
water, which makes it
Right.
worse. Like there's
That's why I was
no,
kind of.
there's
That's why
no,
I was
midway
kind of.
steps for them.
That's why it was kind of weird because it's like if they would be why would they be held up in Connecticut if they still got to travel like a billion hours to get there. Even if they
Well,
had to land somewhere
when they
else.
landed in Connecticut, that was the weather. When they landed, not at the time they was leaving.
Well, so you're saying that they were in Connecticut and they had to wait.
No, they were still in Europe.
In Europe, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So
So
you're saying when they were going to be landing.
when they're going to be landing, that's why they had the weather delay.
No,
That's forecasting, ladies and gentlemen. You forecasting what's going to occur, and then they make actions based off the forecasting.
They could have landed. It's a private jet.
It's a private airlines. Yes.
They could have.
It was a private charter, not a private. It was a private charter.
They could have landed somewhere else.
And they could have.
You know what I'm saying?
But you have to think about this logistically, though. If they have to reroute to another airport, they have to pay that other airport for them to do that.
He gonna make that back 19,000 fold.
Come
on.
That's not something that's coming out of Vince's pocket. That's coming out of the company's pocket. Vince not paying to land there. All Vince is paying for is the service.
Vince would have paid. He wouldn't have cared. That's what I'm saying.
And this is
Ric Flair probably would have paid.
And this is the speculation on whether or not Vince is on the plane. Like, despite the fact, like, that's on the airlines, whether or not they're going to land in Connecticut, or they're going to go, a little bit further south, like maybe to like LaGuardia or something like that, Newark Airport. Like, they have to pay that reroute. That's not on WWE to pay that.
Honestly, if you say, hey, I'm chartering your plane from, because Vince McMahon would be the one that would call them and say, hey, I'm chartering this plane from, Europe to Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And then me as a consumer, I go to them and say, hey, this is the captain speaking. There's going to be some weather delays. We're hoping that it's just 20 minutes, but it could take a little longer, folks.
Yeah, and that's standard procedure.
Right. So after an hour, it's like, this is your captain speaking. We're going to be here for what seems like a good amount of time, if you know what I'm saying. So just stand by. We're going to have the people come in and give you some more drinks. Just let the drinks flow on me, right? So the drinks are flowing. 3 carts, bro. And she says, I've never even seen one cart emptied.
Well, it's a totally different beast when it comes to wrestlers versus sports athletes.
This is true. She said the Phoenix Sports.
Phoenix Sports and a Seattle, the Mariners as well too, was another team.
Which they probably can't even drink. Yeah, they probably can't even drink like that.
It's totally different, and there's a totally different mentality, and that's going to be a recurring theme back then versus now.
So we're here, right? We're on this plane ride that really should have never happened. I would have probably, if I'm a wrestler, I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably be like, man, I know this is probably gonna sound taboo, but I'll be like, man, let me out of here, man. Let me out of here. Like, I'll go find a commercial, right? Like, whatever I gotta do.
Again,
I'll
the
wait.
mindset is, this is also a team building thing as well too. I mean,
talk about that. Let's talk about your team building. Hey, let's talk about this team building. Yeah, come on. Let's talk about the team building, guys.
Oh, don't do Brock this, because we got to talk about that too.
I don't give a about this team building. It's exactly what Brock did. So let's talk about the ribs. I don't know can we go in order?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if I can go in order. I'm trying to think of what was first. So the first thing that I remember happening was, of course, okay, they drank the 3 carts of alcohol. And then, if I'm not mistaken, they started talking about, first of all, Mike Chioda. Shout out to Mike freaking Chioda.
He can't get shout out.
I'm gonna give him a shout out. He didn't look good, but I'm gonna give him a shout out because I would have never ever expected
on
him.
This episode didn't look good outside of RVD.
I'm gonna say that Mike Chioda, I would have never expected him to be this way. I don't know why, but they were talking about drugs and all this other stuff, and they were going through the different type of drugs that people were taking. So I want to say that the first thing that happened was the Brock Lesnar and Kurt Hennig shaving cream.
Mm-mm. It was Michael P.S. Hayes co-clocking Bradshaw.
That's right. They drugged him.
No. This was before he got drugged. When he got drugged, that was the ponytail incident.
So I thought he got drugged, and that's why that's why he did punch Bradshaw.
No.
And then he fell asleep.
No, it happened afterwards. It just sounded like it was like.
Because why would he go and punch Bradshaw if he wasn't high?
He was just completely drunk.
I was pretty sure that they had him slip the drink, and he went and punched Bradshaw, busted him back open. Bradshaw.
No, so what you're referring to when they slipped him a drink, it's supposed to lay you out. It's essentially a sedative.
Which is what they're saying happened to Scott Hall.
Which is, I mean,
at the end.
I can't confirm it.
That's what they said.
Scott Hall.
That's what they're saying happened.
I like Scott Hall.
I like Scott Hall too.
But his demons have been well documented.
That's what they said.
It's very, very hard for me to say with the absolute confidence that him passing out and the things that occurred with him was because someone slipped him a drink. Slipped something in his drink. It's really, really hard for me to believe that.
I mean, I don't even know, man. But let's go back in order. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. So Bradshaw gets punched in the face. He beats up Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes then goes back to they separate them. They go back to their chairs. Yep. And I guess some point in there, that's where we have the spiking of Michael Hayes' drink. So he passes out, right? So then we have...
Which we need to establish the fact that it is a common rule back then. I don't know how much it is now because I don't think they do it as much now because they are so PC and they are so, business minded that you can't do crap like that anymore.
Well, were they contractors back then?
These contractors still now.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they're
but
doing...
But it wasn't publicly traded yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. They're not publicly traded back then, but they are now. So everything is being reflected negatively. But basically what happens is you cannot leave your drink open in open air. Ever.
I get it.
Ever. Because people slipping something in your drink, that's a rib.
Which is such a bad rib.
It's a harmful rib.
It's a broken rib.
It's a broken eye socket.
So obviously Mike Chioda talks about this, wearing sunglasses so you don't get your eyebrows shaved and hats so you don't get your...
And that leads to the Mr. Perfect rib.
Right. So apparently Mr. Perfect had I'm going to just say a thing messing with Brock Lesnar, which is pretty weird.
Well, he has a thing for messing with everyone. He really doesn't discriminate.
I mean, the way they said it, it sounded like it wasn't the first time that he did this to Brock. Personally, like it seemed like he just had a thing with messing with Brock. Obviously, a young guy, Brock's, still kind of baby face clean and a little green, not too green, but he's on his way on that push, right? Mm-hmm. Goes and puts shaving cream on his head, which apparently one person said that Paul E was there. So I'm wondering where he was. Somebody mentioned that Paul E. I don't know if they're talking about somebody else, unless there's another Paul E that I don't know. But somebody said Paul E was across the way or something, but I didn't see or hear anything else about Paul.
I'm pretty sure if Paul Heyman was there, he would have talked about it by now.
Agreed. So, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, puts the shaving cream on top of Brock's head and just goes whammy right on top of his head with a full palm. Obviously, Brock gets up, chases Kurt down the aisle, and then they just start tearing the plane up pretty much. Breaking tables, breaking chairs.
Two big guys just going at it.
And this is not by any fault of his, of course. It's probably my fault, and obviously not being a wrestling aficionado like the Professor John Gotti, King of Von G, Joe Master, Dana like Ninja, the Conqueror, who I didn't know that he was 6'4".
Yes.
I wasn't sure that he was 6'4", and that was pretty shocking to me. But either way, these two behemoths ended up on the emergency door, allegedly.
No, they were actually at the emergency door.
Yeah, because in my opinion, it's like for me, it's like, hey, if you start hitting the emergency door, we got a big problem. Now, I'm definitely jumping in. The way they were explaining it, I'm like, they're not jumping in fast enough. So we wound up getting past that. So then, would you say we had the Michael Hayes hair cutting?
Yes,
which was pretty rough. So X-Pac, which I would say, yeah, right. Which I would say I like the what they call them, the hitch. They said he's like the hitch on the back of the truck because he's always tailing the big load. and I understand that, like, because I feel like he always has kind of hooked on to bigger personalities to try to push himself to the top. It just never worked for him, unfortunately. But obviously, he's saying that Michael Hayes is holding it back, so he cuts off Michael Hayes' ponytail, which is pretty bush league. But again,
it's a rib, Doc.
It's a rib, right? So all of this is kind of overshadowed, by the Nature Boy.
Oh no, that hasn't even happened yet.
I was trying to move us along.
We still have the Dustin thing.
Are we talking about the singing?
We're talking about the singing, the tobacco spit.
Well, that was later. We didn't find that out till...
No, they just described it later, but that was going on.
Like, I'm sure there are plenty of bottles.
They were trying to go chronologically, but then they kind of started to...
Yeah, they did. I'm pretty sure there were bottles that he could have easily spit in. Like, it didn't even have to go down like that. I've seen people spit in cans.
Mentalities.
That's immature, and I wouldn't have blamed them if they would have came down to harsher penalties. Honestly, this whole plane, any damage, this would have came out of their pockets. It definitely would have came out of their individual pockets, even if we had to split it down the middle. But yeah, Dustin singing at a time where they had calmed everybody down was really, really ill-timed.
Yep.
But again, when you look up Dark Side of the Ring on Google or anything else, the first thing you see is the Nature Boy, who unfortunately is just exposing himself.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick 3 and let's get right back into this, because I feel like we need to talk about the Nate stuff, because I feel like that's the only huge takeaway that everyone's taking from this episode. Is
and there's no, but we need to take a quick second.
Yes, we'll be right back.
Yeah, let's take a quick second. We'll be right back.
And we're back as we now talk about the Silencio of the Woo, playing H3ll, Dark Side of the Ring. Doc, you were starting to talk about the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, and his involvement during this hellacious event. And as he became the focal point for a lot of people.
So I love how people said this was the highlight of their flight. Like, they were looking forward to this. That's the only part that I felt was really weird. I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but I was like, a man walking down the aisle in a robe, butt naked, P.D. Pablo, twisting it and twisting it like a helicopter here. I don't want to see that.
I don't want to see that at all, actually.
They got Tommy Dreamer freaking giving us a play-by-play about how he's blessed and all this other crap. And I'm just like, bro, like, what the heck? Like, I know, like, I get it. Like, you're in, you go to the gym, you go to the gym and there's always that one guy that just has to walk around naked. He just has to. And you're like, come on, man. I don't want to see you naked. Like, you got towels, you got robes, you got anything. Like, I don't, but there's always that one guy. You just know it's going to happen. You just got to keep your eyes on your locker.
That varsity jock, that person who's so cool that everyone wants to, everyone likes, and he could just get away with so much.
But I guess it went a step too far. Obviously, he cornered the flight attendant, and obviously he's naked already, so it's already bad. He's naked, and the fact that he walked up to her. But obviously, we're 3 carts in, right? I'm sure Rick drank a lot of that alcohol. Which is not an excuse, because I'm pretty sure his tolerance is probably high and he knew exactly what he was doing.
I mean, it also didn't help out too that he's probably still slightly grieving, not a defense, but still grieving what happened with his son.
Absolutely.
Around that time too, so, you know.
Right. So here we are. He has this woman cornered, and he's like, you know, touch it, and she's like, whoa, no. And then apparently and RVD says he sees her over there, and that's the part where he's a scumbag. Is like, you see her over there, but you don't go over there and help, right? And then Tommy Dreamer's like, Ric Flair would never. He would twist it around like a helicopter, but he would never like make anybody touch it. Right? Rick wouldn't do that. Like, she just didn't take the rib correctly, right? Rick wouldn't put his penis in someone's hand, right?
I just forgot to put the disclaimer that this is not going to be appropriate for children.
I'll make sure to put the explicit on there. But I mean, that's kind of what Tommy Dreamer's saying, though. Like, Tommy Dreamer's like, no, not Rick.
Tommy Dreamer was fanboying.
But it's like, just the fact that he was walking down the aisle in his robe naked was already enough. Yeah, you have women on board. You got Terry Reynolds on board, who, we found out that she was just no selling everything, right? She's supposed to just no sell everything. Well,
again, back then,
yeah,
kind of rough treatment of a lot of the divas, I guess.
Right.
They was being called.
She was a manager at that time, so I don't even know if she was a diva yet.
Wow. Highly sexualized individuals on the WWE roster at that time.
Big time. I will say that.
How about that? Is that a more accurate, fair representation of what was going on?
That's damn good. So Rick, finally, Dustin comes over, helps her out, like, hey, chill out, Nate. Let's get out of here. So this flight attendant never comes back. She ain't serving no more drinks. She's like, man, I quit for the day. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Screw you guys. I'm going home. Right? So then she finally decides to come out, and, the flight didn't land it. She's like, hey, I'm going to come out. I'm going to try to wake some people up. She goes over to Scott Hall, and then he has a freaking episode. Right? He grabs her, rips her shirt, and he's like, I'm going to do this, that, and the third to you. And she's
he also licked her, too.
So I thought he said he was going to, and that's where I was like, oh, no, But then he passes back out.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Then he passes back out, and she's probably like, man, I quit. Like, I'm never doing flight attending again in my life, right? That's what I would have been like, man, I'm doing another, like, I'm not doing this ever again.
Right now,
like everything that we talk
for a career change.
Like everything that we talk about, like I know with the Deshaun Watson cases, right? When the ladies are like, hey, it was PTSD, like I can't even do my massage therapy thing. We're like, there's no way that she can push a cart down an aisle on an airplane and not think about that night. Like there's no, or that plane ride from hell. There's just no way. So yeah, that was rough. The fact that they had to wheel Scott Hall out of there. Putting sunglasses and a hat on his head.
They did
whatever.
Weekends at Bernie's with Scott
Hall.
My
God, yeah. And I'm just
inebriated corpse.
And they're like, I think he might even be dead. I'm not sure. And I'm like, oh my God, let's get off this plane. The plane's wrecked. right? Michael Hayes is furious because obviously he got his ponytail chopped off. Which, wow, right? I didn't remember that.
He's no saint either. He's been,
of course,
just he's the worst type of guy too. Freaking getting drunk and acting the fool at Stephanie's wedding, and Linda had to stop him. Like, he's another kid that just doesn't want to grow up.
Right.
And for some reason was still employed by WWE.
Well, I guess that's the part afterwards. There had to be some repercussions, right? So obviously, a few people get slapped on the wrist, right? A couple people get fined. Some people get fired. But old Nate,
I love the terminology.
Yeah,
Nate is a made man.
Yeah, you know me, like, we talk about the mafia and stuff like that. Like, I was just like, wow, like, but I believe that though. Like, I believe it. Even if he was just talking figuratively, like.
No, there's no figurative with that. It's literally amazing. This isn't the first time he's done stuff like this on an airplane or even a hotel or, stuff like. I don't know about the whole, touching the penis part. I can't talk about, but it was celebrated. Sorry, we'll get to some of the stuff that happened after the episode came out in a moment, folks. Sure. But it was celebrated. It's, elated in the locker rooms. Oh, Nate is doing this again. Ha 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 ha. Like, this is just something Nate do. And it's not, what did they say? There was a 50-year-old Nate doing this. Like, no, he was doing this for decades.
Decades, yeah.
And getting away with it.
Just wooing it.
Nate being Nate. That was just Nate being Nate.
So I feel like the people that got fired, I just don't even think that they really wanted them to be around in the first place.
Nope.
It's just a reason to kind of cut them loose.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate it. It was pretty petty. So I kind of loved it a little bit. But the taping of Michael Hayes' ponytail on the door was really scumbagish.
It was scumbagish.
But it was actually pretty hilarious.
No wonder why you like these scumbag.
That was hilarious. But Scott Hall, come on.
He had to get his walking papers though. He needed to get his walking papers though. He needed to try to exercise those demons that he had. And they brought him back onto the road way too soon. Like, it was a lot that happened there. Unfortunately for Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, he passed away not too long after being let go, which kind of stunk. Which, however you look at that side of the coin, whichever side of the coin you are when it comes to him, it is what it is.
I would have liked to have seen
Brock being
Kevin Nash.
And pun intended, next big thing of WWE wasn't going to, like, it would have to be something ridiculous for him to get, his walking papers. Like, that wasn't going to happen. I don't know, man.
No, I was saying, I was about to say, I would have loved to have gotten Kevin Nash's take because apparently Kevin Nash was there also.
Again, I feel like now everyone's going to be so hyper-focused on not so much as what all the other stuff that happened, but really on what Nature with Ric Flair was doing.
Yeah, and I'm
now
curious
we have,
about
F. Ric Flair trending on Twitter and all this other stuff. And then, I don't know if you saw it, but
I don't go on
Twitter. Ric Flair put something up on Twitter.
Yeah, I don't go on Twitter.
Would you like me to find it?
Yeah, you can definitely find it. Doc doesn't do Twitter very often.
Let me tell you exactly, because he did two different stuff, and like Twitter is having a blast. Like, we're getting New Jack City references, wrestling fans to Ric Flair right now, and my brother's keeper.
Wow,
it's a lot that's happening. Ric Flair, wrestling fans to Ric Flair after watching Dark Side of the Ring. It's Shawn Michaels giving Ric Flair a super kick at WrestleMania. Like, it's a lot that's going on. Apparently, the car shield, which was airing Ric Flair commercials, lifted those commercials, but apparently it came back last night during Raw.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's tough because it's one side versus the other. First of all, and I wanted to bring this to your attention when you finish what you're doing, but and I don't know how long, the settlement lasts. Like, I was surprised that she was even able to tell her story because they settled all those years ago.
I think there might have been a limitation on time for it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking as well. Because I mean, easily they could have, come back and like, hey, we paid you to not talk about this ever again.
Yeah, I think it was probably like a 20-year statute or something like that.
Has to be. But yeah, again, this is all without any evidence or proof. It's all alleged, and that's where I think the commercials are probably like, you know what? I mean, I don't know.
So Ric Flair, and I quote, because he did two different statements, but this is the first one. Basically, it's the same things that was said, but he omitted this first piece over here on his second take.
Sure.
He stated, and I quote, "Every person that I've worked with, from my lawyer to my publicist to my wife, has said not to post a response." That was the part that was omitted in the second take. But I've never run from past behaviors before, and I'm not going to start now. I want to clarify a few things. About 4 years ago, I gave ESPN full access to my life for a 30 for 30 special. We know about that. They covered taxes, financial issues, adultery, divorces, the passing of my child, and drinking/partying at length. Rory Kemp, desperate to matter for another 15 minutes, did an interview about it this morning. When Lori's lips are moving, he's typically lying, but one part of what he said was the God honest truth. I've never heard that he had forced someone to touch his genitals, Karf admitted. Everything with Rick that was construed as negative, I tried to address in the 30 for 30. His drinking, his philandering, his adultery, his money problems, there's quite a bit. But never, at least in the people that I spoke to, no one has ever brought up that he forced himself on someone. I allowed my personal life and the lives of my wife and children to be turned upside down for one reason. Whether it's good or bad, even the really bad, the truth has to matter, even in wrestling. My issues have been well documented over my 40-plus year career. The impact of drinking too much, which nearly killed me 5 years ago, we know about this, has been told time and time again. The reason Rory, or anyone else for that matter, never heard the stories of me forcing myself on anyone is simple. It never happened.
End quote.
End quote.
Again, and that's where it's like, that's why you have to put out a statement, because it's like eventually you'll start losing money, and it's like,
Well, he kind of lost his commercial deal, but then it kind of came back. It's kind of weird. Now people are pulling up stuff from like shoot interviews in the past, like Teddy Long on Ric Flair calling him the N-word. Like these are things that have already been documented, but people are just digging this up because either they didn't know, they're trolls, or they're just people who just want to watch the world burn.
There's a lot of sheep out there. There's no question about it. I mean, once you kind of start rabbit holing, you know how that is, man.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, ultimately, it's a great kickoff episode of Dark Side of the Ring. I don't know. Like, I really want to know about the people who weren't mentioned.
And there's still a lot more things that occurred there.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know if one person would give us the honest truth, and this sounds crazy, it would be Kevin Nash. I would want to hear it from Kevin Nash, because I know it probably sounds crazy, but I feel like out of everybody there, Kevin Nash is probably the most sensible, which is pretty sad. Or if Paul was there, I want to hear from Paulie, right? But
I know you heard this show on your favorite podcast platform, but if you didn't, you can always go to our website at www.debateamongstfriends.com, not only to view this episode, but also the previous. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as we continue to go over the news, the analysis, and the reads.